Welcome to this long-term review of the Amphion 115 speakers, as always on Rapid Flow in the context of electronic music. At Rapid Flow we do everything we can to make you faster in the studio. Check out our templates and sample packs on rapidflow.shop. So I've been running these speakers as my main monitoring tool since almost 2 years now. And I've been in the music industry for over 2 decades now, and I've also worked in music shops and in music instrument and equipment distribution. So I've heard a lot of speakers in my career. I've represented speaker brands, I've sold speakers in music shops. I used to travel through all of Germany's big music shops and listen to speakers in all the different rooms. So I would say I have a very informed picture of what's out there. For example, everything from kind of the more laid-back silk dome tweeter of the Din Audio sort of mid-professional series to the very harsh and very revealing sound of Klein & Hummel, now Neumann, or the incredibly beautiful sound of ATC, the difficult to work with sound of perhaps a brand like M Audio, or the quite reasonable sound of a KRK speaker. I've heard a lot. And these speakers piqued my interest because so many people that I know worked with them and were ranting and raving about how well they translate and how revealing they are and how they help you to make good mix decisions. And the thing is that a little over a year ago, I started working on the company that I own, Rapid Flow, making sample packs and this premixed template that you see in front of you here. And I wanted to be absolutely sure that the decisions I was putting by processing the synthesizers I sample into sample packs were absolutely spot on. So I wanted to have a speaker that I could really trust. And so I ended up trying the Amphion 115s. And in this review, I'm going to tell you what I think is amazing about them, what I don't like too much, and the benefits and advantages depending also on the room size you're in. So first off, yes, they translate incredibly well. Somehow the way that they reveal the music to you, the way that they represent what's going on is incredibly helpful in helping you make better decisions related to mixing and mastering, and I find them a really good tool for studio work. Have I heard speakers that are more revealing? Yes. Have I heard speakers that are more beautiful to listen to? Yes. Have I heard speakers that translate better than this? No, not so far, at least not in a price range where they're a realistic option for me. And by no means the Amphions are not cheap. If you get the matching amp, that's another substantial investment, but you can run these with like a nice Bryston 4B or something along those lines. So, but yeah, all in all, they're not cheap, but they're not at a level of like, I don't know, Key Audio, which, I've heard amazing things about, I would love to hear, but they're just a little bit out of my budget. Or maybe like ATC SCM25s, I'm sure they're incredibly amazing. I've heard them also in certain music shops that I used to work, but they're just out of my league right now. So I wanted the best I could get for a reasonable budget, and with the Amphions, yes, there's something about the way they're tuned, and the white thing that you see there, it's not just a gimmick, it's kind of like a mini horn, which allows them to lay the crossover point between the two drivers at a different place. If I remember correctly, I think it's deeper than most speakers. And these are passive speakers, by the way. We're going to talk about that in a sec. So in any case, whatever they've done with the way they voice these, they sound incredible, and they're nice to work on, but they're still very revealing. So they don't cover up anything that may be wrong in your mix. The things that I don't like particularly about them is that they are, this is kind of a pet peeve of mine, but they have a metal tweeter, and I find metal tweeters are somehow just very harsh and hard on the ears. I've had a tinnitus once from working in the studio, which was on a pair of Klein & Hummel 0300s, which also have a metal tweeter, and I somehow have the impression like silk dome tweeters are smoother for the ears, even though they can also sound very good and revealing. That's the only thing I don't really like about them, but if it's part of the reason why they translate so well, then, from my point of view, it's worth it. But I know I have to be careful with these because the impulses that they send out, especially because I'm running the big matching Amphion amp with them, they have an incredible accuracy and like very fast impulse response that can be stressing on the ears, in my experience. But as long as you mind your volume, everything is okay. So I was running these originally in kind of a smallish space when I was living in Switzerland. It was like a basement, which was maybe 3 by 4 meters. It was really small. And I had them close up to the wall, which is not ideal, but I tuned them in such a way and I put them my mix position in such a way that it actually sounded really good in that room without a subwoofer and only with some Basotec treatment, but no bass absorption. And they were perfect for a little room like that. So if you're in a small room, they have enough bass, definitely, if you're in a small room. However, now in the new studio here in Portugal, let me see if maybe I can give you a bit better of an impression. So this camera here is now, what is it, a quarter of the depth into this room. So put it this way, this space is where I'm in now. It's like an old farmhouse living room. It's maybe like half a volleyball field, roughly in size. It's quite long and deep. And as soon as I started working in this room, it became really clear I'm going to need a subwoofer. And what I'm now using as a form of subwoofer, which are these MS Blue speakers here, which are amazing in their own right, but not as revealing and good in translation as the Amphions. So I have them running all in parallel, and they're basically just pumping up the bass a bit. But because of the way that the amps are and the way I've configured and set up the EMS, I get mostly bass from those. And the direct sound here is mostly from the Amphion, so that's what I hear in the mids and the highs. And this has turned out to work really good for me because I have a philosophy these days that I try to figure out a way to do it with the stuff that I have rather than order the matching subwoofer with it, which is, I'm sure, is super amazing. It's called Flex Bass, and it's like a big block, you know, but it's expensive. And I was like, okay, let me try this, and I realized actually I'm quite happy. I'm very happy with the way it sounds and translates in here, so that's the way it went. And this is a big advantage of the speaker, and it's part of the Amphion philosophy. Is they say if a speaker is well designed and the components well chosen and the crossover and everything well done, you don't need to put DSP and all this stuff in an amp, which means no latency, which means you can run, you know, fully analog speakers like this in conjunction together, and there won't be that many timing difficulties. And because my whole workflow is based on low latency monitoring through the DAW, a speaker adding additional latency is not ideal. So that's something that I was really happy with when I realized that I could mix and match this somehow and create my own little bit immersive sound here, because I have like big speakers in the corners that kind of cover the whole room when I'm standing up, and I have small speakers here that give me a very direct near field sound. And in that way they remind me of NS10s, but they sound way better in that, you know, NS10s, many people would mix on them because you can sit really close, you can get a good feel for the music, you get kind of an impression of the bass, and you don't hear much of the room sound. And these are very similar that way. If I'm sitting here, they're about a meter from me, about a meter apart. I don't get much of the whatever is going on in the room sonically because it's such a condensed small space that I'm listening in, and I think for that they're ideal. If you're in a bigger room and you don't want to have a sub and you want to just run, you know, some Amphion speakers, then I'm sure the 215s or the 218s are more likely the way to go. But this was kind of the most price accessible option that I heard really good things about. There's also the 112s, which I read are not as good as these somehow for translation. So these are the ones I went to. And yeah, to make a long story short, I can absolutely recommend these for electronic music. If you have the budget, if these are sort of in your price range, absolutely a speaker worth checking out. I know there are companies, for example, digital audio service in Germany, if you're in Europe, that will send them to you so you can hear them in your own studio. And I think that's quite essential, so you really get a feeling for these. And this video is not in any way sponsored by or endorsed or related to Amphion. I'm just making this because I think it's a really cool company. I think the design philosophy they have with these is very interesting, and I just wanted to share with you what my experiences is with these, because somehow it seems that there's not that much content on specific use of gear with electronic music, which is what I focus on. Amp-wise, I think now, in hindsight, probably I would run them with like a good used 4BST from Bryston or something along those lines. I'm quite sure that that would also sound very good, because I got the something or other 700 amp with it from Amphion, which is the kind of bigger one they do. And I have to keep the volume quite low on my controller, because otherwise they're just horribly loud. So maybe I should have gotten the smaller Amphion amp, but my dealer recommended the bigger one because it's more fast in the impulses. But I think if you find a pair of these and you get like a nice Bryston amp or some other, you know, good studio quality amp with them, I think you'd be very happy. Now, one thing I did with these that made a difference that was shocking to me is when I got them, I actually got some VOVOX speaker cables and I got VOVOX cabling. Let me remember, was it correctly? Yes, I got VOVOX cabling from my monitor controller to the amp. And I was shocked at the difference that the cabling made from the monitor controller to the amp compared to standard Neutrik, you know, high quality jack to XLR cables was huge. Yeah, like without exaggeration, a 20% upgrade in clarity, punch and precision. And I don't say that lightly. I know that's a big sum for cables. You know, I'm someone that will use the cheapest possible cables that I can get hold of, normally speaking. You know, let me put it this way. I buy quality cables like Cordial and stuff, but I don't buy high-end cables. But I figured, well, for this monitoring chain bit, let's see what it does. I picked up a bunch of cables used, and my God, it makes a big difference. So if you're gonna get something in this league, I think having high quality cables, speaker cables and signal cables, as well as, you know, obviously a good converter and a monitor controller is a must to really get the most from it. For example, I am running here the Dangerous Source as my monitor controller. My sound card goes into it via SPDIF, and from there I go out with those VOVOX cables to the amp, and that's an incredible combination. It's very, very clean, very detailed, comparable to setups that I've heard with, you know, really heavy hitters like Avoset, Crainsong Avoset monitor controllers and stuff. So I have a whole video about what, you know, why I think the Dangerous Source is a super cool sort of mid-priced monitor controller. It's one of the best that I know. So yeah, that's a great setup, I think, for many producers to get very revealing, very good translating high-end sound without having to fork out 15, 20, 25K on, you know, super high range speakers and monitor controllers and stuff. So yeah, I think that is all I can say about these. Yeah, in summary, they do translate amazingly. Be careful because they are quite harsh on your ears, but I guess that's a good thing so that you don't over mix and don't over process your mid end and your high range and stuff. Was it a good choice and investment? Yes. I've owned probably about 10 different sets of speakers, everything from low end to pretty high end, and these are definitely the ones I've gotten the best mixes on. So yeah, that's it for me today. I hope you are doing well. I'm gonna play a bit of music here just for fun, and I'll see you on the next video. Take it easy. Bye bye.